The aortic valve. This is a really, really fascinating little valve. My goodness me, is it powerful and is it important? The aortic valve is the left-sided systolic valve. This is the valve through which the oxygenated blood that has been brought in from the lungs through the left vein into the left atrium, down through the mitral valve into the left ventricle. This is a very, very interesting concept because the energy builds up in this particular quadrant of the heart, the lower left quadrant of the heart, and then it is pumped with extraordinary power up through the aortic valve, into the aorta and out into the brain, into the heart, through the arteries, to every cell in the human body carrying oxygen, life-giving oxygen. Lovely hemoglobin carrying this amazing oxygen to infuse our bodies and to inspire life. The aortic valve is interesting because it's very much tied up with now this concept of what is happening to our cells right this moment in time. It's massively acute. As you well know, if there's no oxygen in the cells, they're not going to survive very long. They die very quickly. So this valve is responsible for lifeblood. It is an interesting constitution, the aortic constitution, because we've already discussed the father constitution, the tricuspid, the mother constitution, the mitral. We discussed the child of father, the pulmonary constitution, and now we look at the child of mother, the baby, the girl, the daughter. This is yin, this is the female side of the body. This is the physical journey, and this is now. Each phase of our life follows the concept of the constitution. And so it is really, really fascinating that each of us have our own personalities. We have our own abilities. We have our own inheritance. And the constitution, called the aortic constitution, is the baby constitution. If you've ever looked into the eyes of a newborn baby, it is the most astonishing thing. You see this incredible depth, power, and wisdom. The aortic baby is a constitution that has been born with the DNA. So anything that damages DNA, mitral valve damage, has a devastating effect on the left side of the body, the mitral valve impacting on the aortic valve, the blood pressure on the left side of the heart. This constitution, we always refer to it as the baby born with the jewels of the ancestry, the memories, the gifts, the incredible, bejeweled with health, the reference, the baby, the gorgeous little baby, with utter beauty. The baby constitution is so stunning because they're so aware of everything. They're learning so fast. They're literally learning to survive, and they need food, and what they put in their mouths comes out through the other end. So it's very interesting that this constitution is all about daily experiences. This constitution is very beautiful, rounded, elegant, and actually sort of wholesome and round, like a little baby, little baby bottom, lovely skin, little round bodies, and little round faces. There's a very healthy little baby girl there with her beautiful little eyes, very bright, and little teeth. And then look at the heart power 5, structural integrity. This amazing and interesting formula is the support for the aortic valve. Intriguingly enough, the organs linked with the aortic valve are the open mouth, what you put in through the mouth, the teeth, the bones, the structure of the body, the digestive tract, the left-sided reproductive organs, and the lower mesenteric plexus. So round about the hips, the sacrum, the sacral girdle, and very, very interestingly, one of the most important ligament, which is the strongest ligament in the hip girdle, which is called the pubic symphysis. This ligament is on the conception meridian, and it's totally, utterly tied up with what's happening in the sternum of the heart. absolutely emotional, and this constitution is exceptionally emotional. So there are some very, very powerful formulas that support this constitution. And the tree formulas are very interesting indeed. Certainly, we start with Superfit 8, female repro, which is a beautiful cannonball tree. That is the most extraordinary tree that grows all around Malaysia and the Far East and the Caribbean. And it's so beautiful because the flowers just grow straight out of the tree trunk. This formula, flower formula Superfit 8, female repro, vibrates on a frequency of 680 nanometers. It's for female reproduction, the bladder meridian, puberty, fertility, conception, pregnancy, and of course the female baby. However, we've already discussed that the pulmonary constitution is right-sided. The female constitution DNA is left-sided. So DNA mitral damage will affect the left-sided reproductive organs. These are responsible for estrogen, for male androsterone. Going up into the thyroid, we would be looking at thyroxine. And again, going into the adrenal glands, we're looking at cortisol, salt, and the salt stability. This constitution is very, very interesting because it's tied up with acid and magnesium and very, very complex nutrients that are needed for this side of the body. It is the acid constitution. A very powerful tree for the aortic constitution is Superfit 9, structure, cherry formula for the bones, the skeleton, and the structure. I'd just like to remind you that the name of the aortic constitutional heart valve formula is called structural integrity. Structural disorders and pain, broken bones, fractured bones, torn ligaments, operations, bones such as hip replacement, back pain, joint pain, slip disc. And intriguingly enough, this is all about the left hip and the left sacral girdle imbalances. So pain is an extraordinary energy, and every single constitution suffers pain when things go wrong. How do we know that this is a left-sided pain? Your patient will lean to the left. Their head will lean to the left. Their bodies will lean to the left. The aortic constitution, unlike the pulmonary constitution, is rounded and usually a little bit plump. They can gain fluid. Their balance is cortisol, which is actually very, very complex indeed. The incredible breakdown of osmosis, where water will literally invade the cells, which are alkaline and fresh water. So the salt water fluid will invade and become saturated so that the aortic constitution can look incredibly obese. The unfair thing here is that it's often regarded as greed, but it has very little to do with food. This constitution, when they become obese, they carry water. I bought a watermelon the other day and it was so heavy. It was only a watermelon, but it really weighed a ton. Can you imagine walking around with I don't know, 10 gallons of water in your body because you're 20 stone? It's absolutely so heavy, terribly heavy on the hips, terribly heavy on the body. And obesity is one of the most common complications in modern society. Obesity leads to diabetes and all sorts of other very serious complications. And again, it is exhausting to be carrying so much fluid in the body. It is very, very complex because people who are obese are often told to go on a diet. It's the worst thing that they could possibly do, but they do have to look at their diet. And this constitution desperately needs fruit and vegetables and could almost be vegetarian, but not quite, because there are proteins that are absolutely vital for this constitution. Let's look at the 5 flower HF formulas for this constitution. First of all, flower formula 5, nightshade. Well, this is an important formula. It's the formula for the mouth and the teeth. And of course, babies' teeth, they come into the world with no teeth. They then start developing and their teeth, their baby teeth grow. And it's what is extraordinary is that most people do not know that baby teeth carry the toxic waste products from the ancestry. And when a baby starts to teeth, if there is a toxicity in their lives, then they will have a tough time going through teething. This formula is extremely supportive. It's extremely supportive of teething babies, but it has another factor as well. It's quite similar to the homeopathic remedy belladonna, and it's marvelous, marvelous to support this turmoil, tumultuous thoughts, not being able to put things into perspective, confusion, incredible complexity of confusion, inappropriate relationships within childhood, a child born into a war-torn zone. This is a very comforting and very powerful formula. Flower formula HF5, nightshade formula, immuase for the teeth, the mouth, and every single aspect of teeth. Interestingly enough, if we damage a child in this world, in this generation, then the teeth will carry that damage, the adult teeth. It's very interesting that it's the only part of your structure that you can actually eliminate, taking away all the waste products that have actually built up in the tooth and walk away free. In modern society, we don't really like to have no teeth. It's considered to be unattractive. And so we do have an enormous amount of dentistry. And I regret to say that some of the materials that are used in the mouth are very, very aggressive indeed. And again, unfortunately, my generation had all our teeth filled up with mercury amalgam and heavy metals. And so that has caused, a lot of problems. And this manifests in old age as well. So unfortunately, your teeth are a problem from the cradle to the grave, and they can be very troublesome and very problematic as you get older. We've already talked about the aortic constitution as being the mouth and what we put into the mouth and what we swallow. If you have tooth decay and you swallow decay and bacteria down into the stomach, this can create some very serious digestive disorders, and particularly acid reflux, which is the first concept, and then a horrible condition called Helicobacter pylori, and that is very serious. The stomach ulcerates, becomes incredibly, incredibly damaged. And often this will impact on the entire digestive system right the way through, creating a condition in the bowels called dysentery. There is a very aggressive toxin that can affect the aortic valve very, very seriously. And it's actually tetanus, tetani clostridium, food poisoning, or it could be tetanus from a damage, a wound, or an operation, or unfortunately, it could be tetanus from a vaccine, a tetanus vaccine. But these create some quite serious imbalances because tetanus is lockjaw. It causes a terrible problem with the left jaw. It paralyzes the left jaw and causes terrible temporomandibular jaw misalignment, which reflects through the shoulder, the opposite shoulder, and down into the same side hip, the left hip. And this causes a terrible instability in the structure. Structural integrity is the key to understanding how to care for the aortic constitution. This terrible damage will reflect into the immune system, across the shoulders, and down into the hip. And unfortunately, this blockage will cause a condition in the uterus and in the colon called endometrius and hypogastric endometrial complications, both colonic and endometrial, prostate for men and colonic for men. It's a very dangerous condition which occurs as a result of the lockjaw. The other formula, which is particularly interesting, and I've already alluded to it, is HF13, evening primrose. Remember, we talked about the aortic constitution as being very physical, and you will see here that these are interesting because there are three physical formulas: the red poppy and red chrysanthemum and red anemone. But we also have the very interesting concept of kidneys. I've already talked to you about obesity and fluid retention, and flower formula 13, evening primrose, the kidney formula, also known as relaxation, HF13, is a formula to stabilize the kidneys, particularly if it's used on the right, then it must be used in combination with a right-sided formula. But if we're looking at the left kidney, then we would use it in combination with one of the left-sided DNA formulas. We are seeing some very complex damage, DNA, mitral damage, which is affecting the mouth, the teeth, the jaw, the kidney on the left, the red chrysanthemum colon formula, and of course the bones. So these are very, very important formulas. Poppy, lifeblood, extraordinary love of life, the blood, the red blood. The red chrysanthemum, which is colon and colonic function. And then we go down into this amazing formula called Kundalini, rising earth energy. Here we have another factor that we just need to bring in here, is that this formula is particularly valuable for X-ray and low emission radiation. So these are very intriguing formulas. Often they're given for symptom relief, but beyond the symptom relief, there are deep, deep complications with structure and inheritance. The colors of the aortic are red, infrared, dark red, almost black, hollow, the pupil, the bone marrow, the hollow organ of the bones, the interesting area in the bones, the hemocytoblast, where all the blood is produced. And of course, red is opposite green, and green is the lifeblood again, the incredible chlorophyll. So the plants are green because of chlorophyll, the blood of the plants, and our red blood is red because of the hemoglobin and because of the incredible oxygenating properties of the blood. Poppy, lifeblood. Physical journey. The physical journey is all about what we eat and how we eliminate. It's our daily experiences, our daily routines, now linked with our babyhood. So if you damage a baby, that will manifest right the way through your life. And it's so interesting that I spend an enormous amount of time working with damaged babies, damaged children. It is so sad that so much that's damaging in modern society is having a terrible, terrible effect on our little babies. It's so worrying that the world is so beautiful, and yet there is so much toxicity on this planet and so many toxic thoughts and breakdown of life. And our poor little babies, they're so powerful, they're so strong, they're so miraculous. If you look at a little newborn baby, oh my goodness me, how beautiful a newborn baby is. I have newborn babies coming into the clinic so often. My patients bring their babies to me and I just love them. I look at their little fingers and I look at their little toes and I look at perfection. God has never made a mistake. We cannot interfere with this incredible perfection. If we do, we cause damage. We cause damage to the lifeblood. We cause damage to the DNA. We cause damage to the future generations. DNA mitral valve damage is dire, and it will have a negative effect on our lives for many, many years to come. How do we harm the physical journey, and what is the physical journey? Well, it's the experience now. What we smell, what we taste, what we feel, hot, cold, unhappy, everything. Does it hurt? We look at the pain of every single constitution, we look back at RNA tricuspid as being excruciating, damaging, degenerative, absolutely destructive. We look at RNA tricuspid pulmonary damage as being inflammatory, totally chronic, and very dangerous. When we look at the DNA, we're looking at the front of the body, the conception meridian, the left side of the body, and the functioning. If we look at the aortic constitution, damage to DNA mitral, DNA aortic, then we are looking at the way the body eliminates. Remember that we have eliminative organs that are responsible for getting rid of toxic waste. We don't like poison in our bodies. We try to eliminate it as best we can. We sweat through our skin, and sometimes if we're sweating toxins, our skin smells nasty. Disease has an unpleasant odor. We eliminate through our mouths, through being sick or spitting or vomiting. We eliminate through our nasal passages, through our sinuses, eliminating our noses run. It's very interesting that sometimes the first sign of toxicity will be a runny nose, a sneeze, a cough, an elimination. Maybe we'll start off with earache, and earache, sort of mucus in the ear, mucus in the sinuses, mucus in the orifices. If we eliminate through our colon, obviously all the waste products from our digestive system are being eliminated through the colon, carrying as well all the elimination from the bile through the liver, all the toxins eliminated through the waste products carried in bile. And then of course the kidneys, which get rid of all the chemicals and the kidney function, the urea, and all the waste products from the water balance of our bodies. And then, of course, women menstruate. And it's so interesting that menstruation can be seriously impaired when there is a trauma with the aortic valve, because menstruation is linked with the elimination of toxic waste products through the blood. It's very interesting that there are some quite serious aggressive conditions in modern society, and I've already mentioned endometriosis as being one of the most worrying and most serious. Now they're saying that 1 out of every 3 women suffers with endometriosis. And these formulas, the heart power formula, structural integrity, is very, very important, together with possibly, certainly, female repro, the tree formula, Superfit 8, and certainly the flower formula 16, and possibly many of the other formulas as well alongside those, in order to ensure health. How do you damage a baby? Well, my goodness me, the baby constitution is very, very interesting. They're very, we call them the prince and the princess constitution, because they love everything that glitters and is beautiful. Interestingly enough, they're usually rather extreme. You can have an aortic constitution who can be absolutely perfect, a little sort of pixie, gorgeous little pixie child, perfection in every single way, the perfect little baby growing into a perfect little child. But then the extreme of the aortic damage is this obesity, this sedentary, sitting in a house. And again, in modern society recently, we've all been locked in our homes, no exercise, no fresh air. And this has had a terribly devastating effect on our lymphatic system and our circulatory system, and poor elimination. This is very worrying indeed, because with that poor elimination becomes intoxication, auto-intoxication in the body, and serious illnesses which occur as not being able to eliminate, not being able to exercise, not having the ability to have fresh air. And I'd love to look at this constitution again, because how do you recognize an aortic baby? Well, an aortic constitution is very rich. They are very flamboyant and sexy and very secure and sensual. They love to be touched and cuddled, unlike the pulmonary constitution that distances themselves. This constitution is very much the constitution, the person who come and sit right next to you and want to be in touch with you. This, remember, a baby, when they're unhappy, they cry, they want to be cuddled. You know, you pick them up and cuddle them and they stop crying immediately. And it's a bit like that with the aortic constitution, the seat of the fruit of life, the fruit of love. They like to be the center of attention. They're very lazy. They don't like to do things. They like everybody to do it for them. And again, they have these lovely eyes. They're very open. They often lean forward when you talk to them and lean towards you. And they're quite happy to be in contact, even with complete strangers. This constitution is a receiver of life and love. They are compassionate, serene and sympathetic, understanding, warm-natured, a fountain of life, a fountain of knowledge and ancient wisdom. The lover, the receiver of love, orgasm, fulfillment and conception. This constitution is very, very special, whole, rounded, perfect. They love things, possessions. They love to touch. Their sense is touch. Interestingly enough, the tricuspid, the sense is sight. The pulmonary is taste. The mitral is auditory, hearing, and the ears. And this constitution is touch. The most interesting constitution is physical, physical, physical. This constitution, if you go into their house, they will have things everywhere, little collections, memories, photograph albums, photographs, letters, all tied up. They never throw anything away. If they are healthy, they surround themselves with beauty. If they are unhealthy, they surround themselves with clutter. Clutter, clutter, piles of books, piles of papers, not very tidy. Piles of clothes all over the place. If you open their cupboards, everything will fall out because it's all being shoved in. They don't, as if a pulmonary cupboard is all neat and stacked, you know, nice, neat little piles of clothes. Tricuspid is usually fairly, not very many. They'll have a few beautiful clothes, not very many. They'll always wear smart things. If you open their cupboards, you know, there'll be spaces in the cupboard. The pulmonary, everything will be neat and tidy, like the fridge. Everything will be neat and tidy in the right place. The mitral, well, oh, she'll have everything spilling out everywhere. That fridge will be full of leftovers. The house will be very welcoming and open. She'll forget to lock her front door. Everybody's welcome into the mitral house. Oh, my goodness, you know, food and friends and fun, family, and everybody around the table being fed. The pulmonary constitution is a greedy little baby that likes to sit and be everything done for them. And as I said, they're either incredibly neat and everything is collections and beautiful treasures all around them, and beautiful homes because they like servants to do all the work for them, or they're just the most scruffy, untidy, and everything, nothing matches. So you'll actually recognize them quite interestingly. They love colors, they love beautiful clothes, they'll wear, you know, ballet shoes and gum boots and tutus and party frocks and sparkle in their hair and jewelry. And men will just be, you know, very scruffy, crumpled shirts, you know, crumpled things. They'd picked up their shirt or from a pile of clothes off the floor. And it's very interesting. Look at people, observe people. This constitution, when they are hurt, they become unhappy, bereaved, oppressed, tormented, sad, grief-struck. They suffer with nightmares and fears. They become very blocked. They remember, they don't forget. They constantly go back to old happenings, old memories. This constitution lays themselves open to victimization. They will allow themselves to be abused. They search for love. They may crave love. They crave to be loved. They might even become a little bit oversexed and may have several partners. Are they promiscuous? Not rarely. What are they searching for? They're searching for love. and it's not the right way. It's an unhealthy relationship. Interestingly enough, this constitution is very loyal and very loving, and they love to be loved. So how do we heal a constitution, a negative aortic? We give them affection, we give them love, we give them food. We give them food. So fascinating.